right, everyone. I am here. And earlier on today, I believe, and I could be completely wrong, I'm going to buy a dunce cap because there's so much I don't know out there in this society, in this realm that we are. I just want to get it to a very light play there. There we go. I'm just setting things to a really light mood as best I can out here. And hopefully, all of you are doing well. The title of this show is called Nick Fuentes, Louis Farrakhan, and Twitter. Now, it stems from a debate or a discussion, a Twitter discussion I had with a gentleman, I believe it was a gentleman, about Nick Fuentes being allowed on the platform. I think now he's been kicked off. I could be wrong on that. But this person said that he's too dangerous to be allowed on the platform because of white supremacy. Because other groups can say inflammatory and bad things, but certain things that primarily will say and things that are in white people's interest are considered too inflammatory to be heard, and they are too dangerous. He pointed out that many people have been radicalized by Tucker Carlson, and that many mass shooters have taken Tucker Carlson's speeches and put them into their manifesto, and were one of the reasons that these mass shooters were driven to the edge, and one of the reasons why they committed mass murder. And I hearken back to a gentleman by the name of Colin Ferguson. I'm not sure, it was in the either late 80s or early 1990s. It might have been 91, where this gentleman boarded the Long Island train and opened fire, and his targets were white people. And he was born and spent, I believe, the majority of his life in the West Indies, but he was often inspired by the likes of Louis Farrakhan. And I remember when Larry Elder, because they'd always, because this kind of thought process was around in the early 90s, that talk radio was radicalizing white racist, and bad things can happen if you talked about things negatively and could affect minorities and marginalized people negatively. And Larry Elder said, well, shouldn't shouldn't Farrakhan be held to the same standards as some of our conservative colleagues? And they were absolutely enraged. I also want to mention, and I did a show on this as well, some of the reaction to Colin Ferguson. If you ever go to a YouTube page that has the story of Colin Ferguson, you will see people write things like, he was arrested, but he didn't get taken to Burger King like Dylan Roof. And my comment is, well, why don't you go buy him? Why don't you go buy Colin Ferguson, the mass murderer, the mass shooter, why don't you go buy him some Burger King? Because if that makes you feel better, that might be a good thing to do. But these people are stuck on the issue that certain types of dialogue are considered too dangerous to be spoken about publicly. And that the internet, which gave us not only freedom of speech, but broadened the reach, that seems to be too dangerous. One of the things that, the first thing that they said that was dangerous was hate speech and white supremacy. Later on, it's misinformation. Again, who decides what hate speech is? Who decides what white supremacy is? I guess white people and people that speak on behalf of white people have to address certain issues a certain way, and there are certain subjects that cannot be talked about openly on the internet, on social media. The information superhighway is no longer the information superhighway. It's the regulated information superhighway, and there are certain things that cannot be spoken about openly and honestly, and it seems to have gotten worse because the people who want to shut down open dialogue not only will shut down social media venues, but they will also shut down places where groups used to meet. Now it's and that was all started online. But it feels like hypocrisy. It feels unfair, and it feels like abuse. And of course, what they'll say is cry harder, whine harder, be a baby. Maybe I am a baby. I'm telling Joey to get me a dunce cap because I don't understand it. I guess to them we have to act a certain way, and we have to accept the abuse online and the double standards. Because of course the people who put forth these ideals don't necessarily want to talk about this publicly and openly. The establishment elites want you to obey. I'm just here to ask some questions. Why should I obey you? Without question? Am I not good enough? If they say I'm not good enough, I can't force myself on them. I can't force them to answer questions that they don't want to answer. But that's one of the things. Why is Nick Fuentes worse than Louis Farrakhan? I guess he's a Holocaust denier, or perhaps a Holocaust revisionist. That's going to put my thing on YouTube. It's going to hurt me, I guess. I'm already hurt again. They've age restricted my thing, and if I unage restrict my stuff, I cannot make comments on that, and that's the way it goes. So, yeah. As of now, it does feel like hypocrisy, and hypocrisy is abuse. But if anyone else has any better ideas, or basically how one should feel about the censorship of the internet, except to just get along with it, and it is what it is. But hopefully I can meet like-minded people who believe in, who aren't afraid of freedom of speech and aren't afraid of freedom of ideas. The rest of society may not be. What's the point of that? Anyway, this has been Brian with Transparency and Merit. Like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below. Thank you for listening, those few who do listen later on to the broadcast.